These air traffic instructors held an informational picket in front of the FAA Academy this afternoon. They are the instructors at the country's only civilian air traffic training center. They are also the men that President Reagan is counting on to train the replacements for 13,000 striking controllers fired earlier this week. The Academy will try to triple its output of graduates, but at least one instructor picketing today is not happy.
I personally am out here in sympathetic support of 13,000. I hope some of my friends still, perhaps former friends in some respects, who gave up virtually everything for something they believed in. We have had contrary viewpoints in the past when we were in the field. I have not been a PATCO supporter before. I don't agree with a lot of the things that PATCO does now, but I do agree that 13,000 of my friends gave up everything.
Most of the other instructors were silent during the march, but their obvious concern is air safety. FAA and airport officials held a news conference today to discuss conditions under the strike and said that air traffic is still safe and passengers are regaining their confidence in air travel.
Yes, we're far from caving in, I can assure you. It'd be most misleading, and it's even further misleading that the skies are unsafe. We will not let an airplane into unsafe skies.
Do have confirmation from a number of the airline managers here at Will Rogers that beginning yesterday afternoon, about mid-afternoon, they noticed an increase in passenger boardings here at the airport. TWA, for instance, reported that they're carrying as many people now with their 6 flights as they were previously with their 9 operations. That would indicate that the air traveling public, observing the air traffic controller strike, apparently has now a growing public confidence in the safety of commercial air travel, and they're coming back to the airport to resume their normal air travel.
Charles Schnitzer, Action 4 at Will Rogers World Airport.
The only road to economic survival for some Oklahoma communities is the railroad. State rail officials are hoping for a $100 million pot to buy and rebuild the 760 miles stretching from Amarillo eastward through Oklahoma to Arkansas and on to Memphis, Tennessee. Santa Fe has agreed to lease and operate the line, and Santa Fe is guaranteed a complete payback of all funds through the lease agreement. Oklahoma Rail Planning Coordinator Jim Townsend is in full support of the 3-state plan. In the meantime, though, Townsend says the state is making other moves to improve rail service.
We've negotiated with the trustee an agreeable price, and we are about to purchase the line from Hydro to Elk City. And we have an agreement worked out with Farm Rail Corporation, which is a short line operator, to commence service as soon as possible. And the reason being that this area has been totally without rail service now for more than a year. It's not only a very vital agricultural area, but the oil and gas industry, as you know, is very active in this area, and they vitally need this rail service.
The future of several rail lines serving wheat elevators near some small Oklahoma communities depends on the outcome of a 3-state plan. Townsend says it's vital to the agricultural industry that the state provide a reliable rail service. Ben McCain, Action 4 in Canadian County.
I don't think they have enough evidence to ever get it to a jury. I've believed for a long time that the government has pursued unjustly Senator Stipe, and I still believe that. And I believe this is just an extension of it.
This will be home for people training to become air traffic controllers in Oklahoma City. 120 men and women reported to the FAA Training Center this morning. Most appeared eager to start classes after orientation. FAA officials will spend most of the day trying to acquaint students with their new surroundings. Orientation includes letting the trainees know what all they will need to complete their 20 weeks of instruction here before being transferred to a control tower. The actual teaching won't get underway until tomorrow. More students are expected shortly to bring the enrollment up to 144, and new groups of students will arrive about every 4 weeks. Only about 25% of the trainees are rejected at some point, and they usually go right back into civilian life. For the 120 trainees, today is no different than the first day of school anywhere, but they won't be fully fledged air traffic controllers for 2 or 3 more years. When asked how some felt about replacing men and women who had been fired, they said, "A job is a job, no matter how it comes about." Ed Stewart, Action 4, the FAA Academy.
The plane went down in a sparsely populated area about 20 miles west of Barnsdall. 39-year-old Dennis Dutch was en route from Tulsa to Blackwell. About 30 minutes into his flight, the highway patrol trooper radioed to Tulsa, saying he was having electrical trouble. Then he went down. That was at 8:45. Rescuers had a hard time locating the site, but finally found the burned-out wreckage and Trooper Dutch walking along a county road about 12:30. Officials say he went down with the plane on fire, made a good landing considering the conditions, pulled himself from the plane and tried to douse the fire with an extinguisher. He suffered some burns to his face and hands and may have injured a hip. Investigators are still sifting through the debris, trying to determine what caused the crash. They are tentatively blaming it on an electrical failure. However, they won't know for sure until FAA investigators get a hold of the wreck. Ted Brown, Action 4 near Fairfax, Oklahoma.
Paul Clowers is county engineer. He says the roads in Freedom Acres and other tracts of land in southeast Oklahoma County don't meet county requirements for subdivisions. The roads aren't asphalt, and they're not 32 feet wide.
The streets in no way can conform to county standards, which means that the subdivision could not be approved and accepted by the county, and that in turn would mean that people that buy tracts out here wouldn't have available to them the maintenance of these streets by the county. We would not issue a building permit, and the people that might be here with mobile homes, they're still going to be inconvenienced and have a great deal of expense that they're not looking for in the maintenance of these roads.
The developer of Freedom Acres is Bill Sexton. His attorney is Frank Pickle. Pickle says the county regulations that cover land located outside the Oklahoma City city limits don't apply in this case because Freedom Acres isn't a subdivision.
In those regulations, a subdivision is 5 acres or less. Freedom Acres, the plots are larger than 5 acres. But if it isn't a subdivision, the roads don't apply. Their rules and regulations simply do not cover that, and they're going outside the law, the regulations, and their own past history.
Both sides do agree on one thing. The courts will have to decide who's right. Bill Ross, Action 4.
Well, I guess I should be happy, but I think it's rather sad that people must go through such ordeals because of the spitefulness of some prosecutor. It's the most despicable conduct known to civilization to fraudulently and falsely prosecute someone.
Senator Nickles has supported President Reagan's handling of the controller strike right from the start. So today he took a short tour of the complex where the FAA trains the nation's air traffic controllers. The Academy accepted 144 new air traffic trainees this week. Nickles didn't have a chance to chat with the students, but he did get a glimpse of the classrooms where the recruits undergo months of intense training. The FAA plans to step up its training at the Academy soon. The agency wants to add a second and possibly a third shift of students. Some critics say the FAA can't possibly train adequate replacements that quickly. Senator Nickles disagrees.
No way in the world. I have a great deal of confidence in the administrator of the school here and the various people. They're going to run a very top-notch professional group. This is not just a class where they complete their weeks and they're ready to go. They have to pass tests. They have to be able to prove their proficiency in any number of methods of air traffic control, and so they have to prove themselves before they'll be able to actually go out and work the airways.
When Nickles returns to Washington, he says he plans to report on his tour to the FAA's boss, Transportation Secretary Drew Lewis. Scott Wallace, Action 4.
Kenneth Sublett has been looking to buy a new pickup for several months. Because of customer incentive programs being offered by car dealers this month, he's decided now's the best time to buy. Each of the big three car giants is using their own method to get customers in the door, and it seems to be working.
Business is super good. And we also have some incentives on some of the car line, up to $350.
Sales are looking good for U.S. car makers because they've been willing to change their products. For example, General Motors will soon be shutting its plant to completely retool. GM puts out about 1,200 cars a day. In order to get ready for the 1982 production, the plant will have to undergo some changes, which will require closing down for about 3 weeks. According to Personnel Director Carol Jones, the 4,500 GM workers affected by the shutdown will have a job to come back to.
It is a temporary layoff. It's for annual model changeover. We expect all our people to be back to build our new 1982 cars.
If the upswing in domestic car sales continues here at home, the future should look bright for both makers and dealers. Carol Lambert, Action 4.
The person who wants to become an air traffic controller gets a specified type of form which he fills out or she fills out, and then is invited to take an examination along with quite a few others in the various job centers or a building so designated. From that then, and the results of the examination, if you make 70% or better, then your name will be kept on our computer files, which are maintained here, until such time as you would be called up for a position in one of the areas.
Many liquor stores are filled with alcoholic beverages from the Heublein spirits groups. There has been some speculation that Heublein may stop selling to Oklahoma wholesalers, as did Seagram distillers last week. Seagram and Heublein are involved in a dispute with state wholesalers. The wholesalers buy liquor from the distillers at state-protected low prices, and then resell the liquor out of state, undercutting the out-of-state dealers. One retail liquor store owner says it's just a matter of time before Heublein pulls out of Oklahoma.
My personal opinion is that Heublein will withdraw their products from the state probably within the next week or so. And probably the only reason they haven't done it before is they're worried about an antitrust suit because of the Seagram's people pulling out.
Heublein has no intention at this time to move their products out of the state of Oklahoma.
Richard Christ, the director of the Alcoholic Beverage Control Board, explains why he feels Heublein will stay in Oklahoma.
They have every intention of following the district court judges' ruling in this matter, and that they would fill and ship orders of Oklahoma wholesalers as they came in.
So liquor drinkers, because Seagram's has pulled out of the state, doesn't necessarily mean that other distillers are going to follow suit. As for the wholesaler question, that probably won't be answered definitely until the state Supreme Court takes a look at that issue. Ed Stewart, Action 4 in Northeast Oklahoma City.
For 3/4 of a century, these red and white brick buildings have housed hundreds of homeless kids. But now they're going to be torn down in the name of progress. But that's not all bad, because the $12 million from the sale will give the kids a brand new home and even better care. Some of the money will go to relocate the kids at a new children's home to be built in Moore. Child Care Director Lowell Milburn says the new home will be energy efficient and modern in every way. Right now, the home spends $40,000 a year on utility bills because many of the old buildings are hard to heat and cool.
The same type of services will be provided, only they will be improved, and also we will be enabled to build a modern type child care facility. You see, these buildings, some of them, about 6 of them, are large 2-story structures, which are beautiful, but they're kind of out of date.
Less than 1/4 of the money from the sale will go toward building new homes. The rest will be put in an endowment, bringing in revenue for the operation and maintenance. The sale will be completed in about a year, after which the kids will soon move in their new home in Moore. Carol Lambert, Action 4.
After the first 45 minutes of the movie, I found myself wanting to escape from the theater. Actually, the film wasn't that bad, but what I thought was a very interesting idea for a movie turned into a regular chase film, the kind we've all seen before, nothing new. Now here's the situation. The year is 1997. The entire city of New York is a maximum security prison holding 3 to 4 million convicts, and they're all divided up into their gangs, of course. The president's plane crashes inside the city, and he's captured. Now we're switching, so stay with me. A guy named Pliskin...
Call me Snake.
Okay, Snake Pliskin. He's not the kind of guy you would take home to meet your parents. He's being sent into the prison for being a naughty boy. Pliskin is played by Kurt Russell. You'll remember him from all the Walt Disney movies. He's given a proposition from the police chief, played by Lee Van Cleef. Go in, bring the president out in 24 hours, and you're a free man. Not a bad proposition, you say? Well, when given to him, Snake replies intelligently,
I'll think about it.
He does for about 2 seconds, then he says yes. Now, when Snake goes in, he's greeted by the welcoming committee called the Crazies. It must be time for dinner. They come and get it. Snake, would you like to join us for dinner? Hey, a simple no would do. The movie is directed by John Carpenter. He gave us the great film Halloween a few years back. His direction here is still not too bad, but he really let a great idea slip through his fingers. As for some of the acting, well, Ernest Borgnine plays a New York cab driver. I'll let you figure that one out. Adrienne Barbeau just sort of walks around in a low-cut blouse as if she's saying, "Is this where I stand?" Kurt Russell's character is a cross between Marlon Brando in The Godfather and Clint Eastwood. Isaac Hayes tries to be a tough guy. He's the leader of the gang holding the president hostage. He should stick to making music. I did think the set designs were very good, though. So, out of all this, do I recommend the picture? I'm afraid not.
Is that your answer?
You got it. By the way, call me Worm.
Eastern Airlines made it official today. About 3,000 of its workers won't have a job beginning next month. The air traffic controllers' strike has reduced flights by almost 20%, and to cope with costs, Eastern says it must cut back. Approximately half the layoffs will be seasonal adjustments, which happen every fall. The other 1,500 will be full-time employees from all areas except pilots. They're negotiating a pay cut for themselves, which will save 300 pilots' jobs. Eastern only has 3 daily flights now out of Oklahoma City. One of those will be dropped on September the 9th. But fortunately, the layoffs won't be that severe for local people.
It will probably mean one management position and one non-management position that will be eliminated here in Oklahoma City.
If the airlines are dropping flights that are marginal profit makers, the question arises whether they'll really lose money.
You got to remember your fixed costs, which are primarily in rentals. These are your biggest expense. True in kerosene that you consume by flying, you'll have a savings there, but you've got to keep the fixed expenses in mind. Those continue.
As for how long the layoffs will be, no one really knows. For the most part, it depends on how fast new air traffic controllers are trained, and that could take until the spring of 1982. Carol Lambert, Action 4.
The first day of school can be scary, but in Mrs. King's music class, she tries to make the kids comfortable by playing some old children's songs. There is no day like the first day. Butterflies in the stomach, apprehensive looks to make sure you have a friend, and finally, just feeling comfortable in an alien environment. But these first graders at Rollingwood Elementary School managed to survive.
I liked when we were playing out in the playground.
Tell me what you did all day.
I forgot. We did some work and, well, I like outside too, on the playground.
But what they really liked was being on TV their first day of school. Bella Shaw, Action 4 at Rollingwood Elementary School.
It was business as usual at Edmond schools today. 7th graders at Sequoia Middle School signed up for the fall semester. Other Edmond students enroll tomorrow. Classes are scheduled to begin Thursday. But it appears Edmond teachers will have to start school without a contract. Teachers voted down a proposed pact by an 8-1 margin late yesterday. You may remember a couple of years ago when Oklahoma City teachers failed to agree on a contract, they went out on strike. But Edmond teachers are firm. They say you won't see any picket lines surrounding Edmond schools.
We definitely will not go on strike. We feel that we have a responsibility to our children and to the community, and there's no talk of a strike whatsoever.
Okay, but you will go out and try to hammer out a new agreement?
We are going to draft a letter to the board and one to the chief negotiator for their team, Dr. Woodward, requesting that we meet again and try to resolve the problems that are keeping us apart.
The union plans to poll its teachers to find out what they liked or disliked about the original contract. Scott Wallace, Action 4 in Edmond.